Born in the small town of Kentucky, Michael Grant was an ambitious boy. He was born on 15th December 1983 to David and Julia Grant. The couple was not so well off to support their family smoothly. Michael's father, David, was a mechanic and was very distant from his family. It may be because of the guilt that he could not provide decently for his family despite working hard and even overtime. David had also developed a habit of smoking and drinking and would not be available for the family, even at the hardest times. He would spend his leisure time with friends having little smoke and drink parties. Michael's whole world revolved around Julia, his mother, a kind-hearted lady who was worn out by the tensions of life. Julia had had a hard life. She worked tirelessly to both manage and support her home. She worked part-time and would spend the rest of the time managing and taking care of the household. Being hardly stricken by the poverty, the family struggled financially. Michael was a brilliant student. He studied till high school and aspired to get admission to the university in business studies. This was not only his but his mother's dream too. He struggled to get admission and finally got into the local community college. Finally, life was getting on track for him. His mother and father struggled hard to afford their only son's education. He attended the college for a few semesters, but one day something unfortunate happened. David, Michael's father, passed away due to a heart attack. It was a really hard time for the family, not only emotionally, but financially too, since David was the major contributor to the household. Michael could not afford to study anymore and had to quit college. It was now his time to support the family and took this job on himself. He started at a low position in the construction company. The family had always valued work, and so did Michael. Soon, in a few years, Michael, based on his competency, became the construction manager of the company. By this time, his family's financial situation had become far better. His mother would now rest at home while Michael was the sole bread earner, and they did well. Although Michael did well in all aspects of life, his personality had developed a need for validation. He was deeply affected by other people's opinions. Though he was charismatic, he was insecure in so many aspects. This was due to the voids that were left in his childhood. Michael met Sarah randomly at a party, thrown by one of their mutual friends. It was the first time he met her. Sarah was born and raised in Michigan. She was just a year younger than Michael and belonged to a well-educated family. Her parents, unlike Michael's, were quite supportive, and Sarah, taking full advantage of her background, always excelled academically. She also enrolled in a reputed university and pursued a degree in psychology. He specialized in counseling and took a job in a community college, where she would deal with students who face academic and social pressures and anxieties. Michael looked at Sarah. This was his first ever interaction with her. The two sat distantly at two corners, but by the time the party ended, they had developed a good bond. They had a few drinks together and spent the whole time together. After the party ended, Michael dropped Sarah off at her home too. The two became good friends. They were now often seen at restaurants and movie theaters together. Within a period of a few months, they got into a relationship. In July 2010, Michael proposed to Sarah, and the couple decided to get married. They brought together their savings and threw a luxurious party. It was attended by all the special and dear people. They also bought a house in a decent town and started their new life. The couple lived a happy and adventurous life for the next few years. They did not have any children since they were not ready for them. In their early years of life, the couple would have quality time together. Regular dates, vacations, and movie nights would make the marriage livelier. But with time, the thrill started to fade away. Maybe it was because the two started to get bored of each other. Since the two did not have any child to keep them bound at home, they started spending more and more time at work and would only return home exhausted. They would have dinner and sleep, just to wake up tomorrow to follow the same routine. Whatever the reasons, the marriage was getting dull with time. It was 2016, when in the summer, Emma returned to her home from the university. She had lived in a bustling city with her parents. It was after 5-6 years that she returned to her hometown. She would go out for the morning jog. The Grant family and Emma had crossed over each other quietly so many times. They never talked until one day after Emma's return from the university. It was a summer's morning, and Sarah was out for a walk. Michael was outside washing his car. Before this, the two would only interact by waving a casual hello, and the other nodding back. This time, when Emma waved at Michael, she was surprised to receive a wave back and a flashing warm smile. The next day, while Emma was walking, she saw Michael out with his dog for a stroll too. When the two got near, they stopped and had a little conversation over casual things. After this day, this became a routine for the two of them. They would meet and chat for quite some time before they left for home. Time passed, and the two who at first would meet coincidentally would now meet regularly, and on purpose. In these meetings, the two would find solace in their stressful lives. Sarah would find a break from the tiring search for a job, while Michael would escape the boring routine of his life. With time, the two grew closer and closer. Emma was attracted to the charming personality of Michael, being taller than 6 feet and having broad shoulders, a decent beard, and a mature way of talking. Michael seemed smart, strong, and stable to Emma, while Emma was young and more energetic. Michael's life with Sarah was stable but silent. Emma and Michael would now wait eagerly all day to meet and share their stories. Emma started to discuss personal things with Michael too. She told him that she wanted to become a writer, and she would also share her experience of struggling in the small town. She was filling a void that Michael did not know about. Things went forward, and one day Michael invited Emma for a cup of coffee at a local cafe. It was for the first time that the two had sat comfortably in the company. This was a harmless meeting. While the two shared their stories and sipped coffee, they felt a comfort in the environment. All the while, when Michael talked, Emma looked at him admiringly. This was the start of a series of meetings to follow. There was no blunt or direct expression of emotions, but slowly and gradually, the gaps were bridged. The bond of friendship turned into a romantic one. The once strangers were now romantically attracted to each other. The age gap vanished, while Emma saw a romantic charm in Michael, and Michael, too, was flattered by Emma's youth. It was one day when Emma finally took a step. She called Michael at her home while her parents were away. Michael had sensed the situation. He was excited, but his heart pounded too. He wore a sexy perfume and sneaked out of the house, without letting Sarah know. Emma too dressed up in a way that was different from the usual one. The two sat in the lounge and poured some wine. Within moments of discussion, they were kissing. Nobody remembered who initiated, but in the heat of the moment, the two had started making love. It was their first intimate meeting. Michael felt lively after years, and Emma too felt as if she had never experienced anything like this in her life. This went on for months. The two would meet in motels, in their own homes when the family would be away, and in all the places that were feasible to them. They were high on their adrenaline of secrecy. Michael, being mature, could control his emotions, but Emma had invested her whole energy into it. She fell in love with Michael. She was desperately into him. All was going well, because Michael was easily managing his family and love life. One day when Michael and Sarah were out for dinner, Emma with her friends visited the same restaurants unknowingly. When she saw the couple together, she got filled up with anger. She felt jealous, so much so that she left the dinner and her friends and left. She was in a fantasy world where she was with Michael. It was a reality check to her that Sarah existed there too. She decided to confront Michael and would ask him to choose between her and Sarah. Michael, on the other hand, faced a severe sense of guilt. Whenever he would return home after meeting with Emma, he would feel burdened by guilt. Whenever Sarah would talk to him about anything, her soft voice would remind him of the days she had been with him, their memories together. Michael would realize what he was risking. Despite all this, he could also not bring things to an end with Emma. Michael would meet Emma and remind himself that he was not harmed and that he could manage both his marriage and his affair without facing any consequences. But after the incident at the restaurant, Emma found it hard to hide her emotions and confronted Michael. Michael was suffering already, and this was a new contribution to the toll on his mental health. Emma asked him to either leave Sarah or her. She was tired of the secrecy in private meetings. She wanted Michael to openly accept their relationship and show his commitment. Michael was torn between excitement with Emma and the guilt with Sarah. He spiraled into a constant state of anxiety followed by sleepless nights and disturbed food patterns. He could also not concentrate on work. Emma was insistent that Michael should make a decision, and after each meeting with her, he would grow even more tense. Michael was now at the crossroads. Even though he tried to manage Emma's emotions, he was helpless because he had to decide. Sarah, after all, was a wife, and she noticed the strange behavior of Michael. She noticed the faint smell of perfumes on his clothes, his late-night excuses, and spending more and more time outside the house. At first, she told herself it was all paranoia, and that this was due to the exhaustion from the work that caused all this. One night, while the couple lay in bed, Sarah could not sleep for a long time. While she was awake, she heard a notification on Michael's phone. She picked it up and her heart sank when she found a text. It was a hint of intimacy from Emma. Her suspicion had turned into belief. It was only the lack of evidence that stopped her from confronting Michael. She hired a private investigator to confirm her fears. In the following few weeks, the detective confirmed that Michael was having a relationship with Emma Wright, their neighbor's young daughter. He also provided photos and locations as evidence. This shattered her, not only because Michael had betrayed her, but also because of the thought that Emma was a little high school girl. Since they knew each other, she could have never believed that Michael would break her heart for a mere child. This betrayal was intimate as well as painful. Sarah could not control her emotions for long. She wanted to catch the two red-handed, but could not get the opportunity to do so. She could also not waste more time, as it was unbearable for her to imagine her husband with another girl. One night when Michael returned home, Sarah could not hold herself back. She handed over an envelope of pictures to Michael. This was the evidence provided by the detective. Michael was startled by this. He did not expect it at all. He at first denied all this and said it was just a casual friendship with Emma. Sarah, on the other hand, was in no mood for lies. She pushed Michael to be honest with her and presented undeniable evidence. All this made him confess everything reluctantly. She confessed his relationship with Emma and said that he never wanted any such thing and that he felt lost. She could not stand to all this. She could not even look at him. His excuses felt like a slap in her face. It all left her devastated. She asked him to leave, her voice quivering. Michael left the house knowing what he had done and felt the burden of all of it. Sarah was left in the house, her life darkened and filled with a void that may never be filled again. When Emma got to know about all this, she found it as an opportunity. She went to Michael and stayed beside him. She reminded him of their love and happy memories. She tried to soothe Michael and asked him politely to leave Sarah and move on. She even said that Michael deserved to be happy, which he was not in his marriage. Sarah tried her level best to manipulate Michael. When Michael did not respond to her soft manipulations, she used emotional tactics and blackmailed him so that if he did not leave Sarah, she would harm herself. All this left Michael in a state of turmoil. On one side was his beloved wife, with whom he had a comfortable life and plans, but on the other side was his lovely girlfriend with whom he enjoyed a lot. He had to choose either one. He could not do it, and as it was a hard decision, but the constant blackmailing by Emma led him into extreme anxiety, and it became unbearable for him. He wanted to make a decision, but could not do so. At last, Michael had made up his mind to end things up with Emma and to fix his marriage. Sarah, on the other hand, was suffering from depression. She would lock herself in the house and cry all day. One winter night on January 26, 2017, Sarah was in her bed when she heard a car engine, and the horn too sounded familiar. When she looked outside the window, it was Michael's car. She missed him and waited for his apology, which she would accept after a while. She just waited to get reunited with Michael. She was happy. It was a light in the darkness to see his car approaching her house. But little did she know that he was there for Emma. When the car parked in front of Emma's house, it was unbearable for Sarah. She was Michael going inside Emma's house. She could not bear all this and wanted to confront the two of them. Just as Michael went inside Emma's house, Sarah followed them. She knocked at the door, filled up with extreme anger. This time her target was Emma. She went inside and started to curse the two of them. For a while, she did that. Then she turned over to Emma and yelled at her for stealing her husband off her and ruining her settled life. Emma also retaliated. The two women yelled and cursed at each other for a while. When Michael tried to interfere, Sarah did something that would lead to a disaster. In the heat of the moment, when Sarah felt defeated, she slapped Emma in the face. This filled a rage in Emma. She quickly went to pick up the glass vase from the side table. Michael tried to stop her, but no one could stop a woman filled with rage from doing anything. Michael tried his best, but Emma threw the vase so hard at Sarah that she fell on the shattered pieces of glass unconscious. At first, they thought the bleeding was from the bruise on the forehead. They did not know that the shattered pieces of glass on which Sarah fell cut her jugular vein. Just as Michael pushed Emma away and went to check Sarah's heartbeat, he noticed the bruise on the neck. He tried to stop the blood from flowing and wanted to call 911 for help. He was again in a state of turmoil, as doing it would lead to his arrest too. In the meanwhile, Sarah took her last breaths and died. The two of them then tried to hide the body and cleared up all the evidence. They did everything in their capacity to make the scene one of the burglaries gone wrong at the Grant residence. They reported to the police and talked about the fake incident. The police quickly noticed the inconsistencies in their story. They encircled the two names and started investigating Emma and Michael, and soon, within a period of a few weeks, they discovered Emma and Michael's relationship. They confronted Michael with the evidence, and he, who felt the burden of guilt, confessed everything. The police charged the two of them for the murder of Sarah Grant. The trial began on February 21, 2017. In court, Michael accepted the charges and admitted to having altered the crime scene and made up a fake scenario. He also admitted that Sarah died in a conflict that went out of hand. Emma, on the other hand, excused for the murder being committed in self-defense, and that she felt threatened by Sarah's aggression and rage. The court announced its verdict in April and sentenced Michael to 25 years in prison, with the charges of altering the evidence and mishandling the situation, while Emma, being immature, was sentenced to 10 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 6 years. In 2023, Emma was released on parole, and after that, she spent most of her time in community service. She has also revisited her choices and is now working on her aspirational writings. She writes on her feelings and experience it, making people understand the cost of their irrational decisions, while Michael serves his tenure in the prison. If you liked watching this story, make sure you hit the like button. Also, do subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates about new crime stories. Stay tuned for more videos.